Welcome to Vets to PM's Military Transition Academy podcast, the show where we discuss how to succeed in transitioning from the military service to the civilian workforce. This show and the academy it represents helps veterans transition into meaningful, lucrative post-service careers. Your primary host is Eric Doc Wright, PhD, certified manager, military veteran, serial founder, best-selling business author, philosopher, linguist, and coach. Your other host is Jeremy Burdick, project management professional, scrum master, product owner, and retired Air Force chief, and the current COO of Vets to PM and the Professional Development Unit University, where we will interview veterans successful in corporate America and business to bring you nuggets of wisdom every episode to make you more successful. Next, let's introduce today's guest. This week we had a couple special guests, two active Navy chiefs. One, Yogi, born in Mexico, joined the Navy out of Texas in 2002. He's rated as an AME. In layman's term, that's an aviation structural mechanic and safety equipment, and is retiring as a chief. He currently is going through a med board process, and his wife, Sashi, moved from Iwakuni, Japan to San Diego and is ready for their next adventure. Chris was raised in Texas and Washington State, joined the Navy out of Washington in 2003. He's rated as an AZ, or Alpha Zulu, Aviation Maintenance Administration, and is planning on retiring due to injuries as a senior chief. His wife is Sarah, and their two children moved from Iwakuni, Japan to the States and are ready for their next adventure. These two gentlemen that join us today have their own podcast called Return to Roots. Please check them out. Got a lot of good information, a lot of good wisdom on there. So we're happy to have them on the show, and let's get started.
And welcome to the show, brother. We're glad to have you, a fellow podcaster. So let's start right there if we can. And we'll let Jeremy really drive this thing because he's much better at this than I am. But Chris, man, tell me about your guys' podcast.
So our podcast is called Return to Roots, and that captures retention in the military, transition from the military, and reintegration into the community. And not just for the veterans themselves, but also the whole entire family unit. So what we are doing, our mission and everything that we're looking at doing is, and are already doing, we've already recorded numerous episodes. We actually talk to the nonprofit organization, the veteran-centric organization, and we get not only the person's story that's there, but we also get like the resources out to people. Then on the flip side, we also find people that have used those resources successfully, and we actually get the whole entire like 360 of what these organizations are doing. It's actually like an honor just to be able to do this, because some of the stories that you hear are just like, it's real. Like just real life stories of like people's trials and tribulations of how they got in there. And even the people that we interview, their stories are actually like really amazing. And it's just an honor to be able to do that.
So I like the focus, man. So you guys look at it while I'm wearing a uniform, you look at it while I'm taking the uniform off, and then you look at it, hey, I took the uniform off, and you look at it from the family unit. So pretty cool. And I think you guys, there's over 40,000 at last count. There's over 40,000 veteran service organizations out there. And many of them do the same things because they're serving the same people. So the challenge is, especially if you're going through a 3-day, hey, press record and fasten your seatbelt and hold on for this 3-day roller coaster of CAPS class.
That's like one of the biggest things is like, there's so many resources out there. It's like, man, which one do I grab on as I climb on this? Look at it like a ladder. You're climbing out of one chapter of your story into another one. It's like, which rung do I grab? There's just so many of them. And what we've kind of noticed is like maybe there's a little too much analyzation going on well, what resource do I choose?
Yeah, and you get paralyzed, right? I mean, you got too many choices. You just can't really tell which one's quality, which one's not, and they could all be quality, and you just can't make a decision because you're like, there's just too many to decide from, right? If you got every single fruit in front of you, you're like, well, wait a minute, I kind of like bananas. I also like oranges. Wait a minute, an apricot's there. So, I mean, you you keep, like you said, over analyzing it and can't make a decision. It's like, oh wait, I kind of like, pineapples on Sunday, or whatever. So really
And-
good way to put it.
And I think one of the biggest things that we run into is that at first you don't know, you don't know what you don't know, right? But then the other biggest problem is once you do start learning about all the programs that are available, just like you mentioned, you get so overwhelmed so fast that is insane. You go from having almost no hope that there's anyone out there to help you, and you're just on no man's land by yourself, to now completely overwhelmed, and now you're super saturated.
Yeah, it's like walking in the Cheesecake Factory. It's one of my wife's favorite places to eat. Yeah, but I walk in and I just want a burger, and I'm looking at a 9.5-inch thick menu, man. You know what I mean? It's like, holy cow, I was hungry until I just lost my appetite. I don't even know where to start. Like, never mind. I'll just have a beer. Thanks.
Yeah. And then you're leaving the, I hate to say it like this, but the low hanging fruit stuff is because you're looking at up top. There's all these resources that you just like, oh, well, like I need to get my benefits, but there's like these other programs that are like designed to help you kind of change the way that you analyze things. There's, like the transition academies or programs that are out there that are going to help you kind of repurpose your life. We found but the thing is we found that you need to start thinking about this stuff while you're in. We need to start bringing this to the people as they are going through their career, so that way they could actually align themselves better and better prepare themselves. But also keep in mind, while they're in, they still have to focus on the mission at hand. But they should have an idea of what's out there.
So, Chris, what are a couple things, man, as you're going through this process right now as we speak, dude? What are a couple things that you're having to change in your mindset? You're finding like, hey, my calculus worked like this, and now because of the stuff I'm bumping into, I need a new perspective. Here's the things I believe, or the things I think, or the things that the approach I'm using. Is there anything that you're finding that you're having to kind of reorient to help the folks listening?
Yeah. One thing that I've kind of noticed is that as I'm transitioning out, realizing, hey, and it's not really a fault of the military, but everything's institutionalized and it is organized very well. They have hundreds of years of experience organizing how we promote, how we advance, how we get our qualifications, how we do all that stuff. But now I'm realizing, hey, it's me to determine how I'm going to promote myself, how I'm going to train myself, how I'm going to, take real ownership of everything that I do during my transition to set myself up. And not just myself, but my family that I'm responsible to as well.
Yeah, good point. No career counselors out here, man. It's
Yeah.
it's all you now. You got to reimagine what you want to be next. Yogi, how about you, brother?
One of the biggest things that I've found is the accountability portion, right? You have no one to be accountable to, therefore it's easier to just let things by. For me, I've been in for 21 years. So you always have to keep yourself, even if you don't have to turn in a report, you know that you have to do certain things so other people don't suffer the consequences of your inadequacy, right?
Yep.
But with that being said, you've also learned to push your priorities back because they were not as important as the bigger mission. So whenever you're transitioning out, you're like, well, what else can I be doing besides taking care of myself?
Yep.
And you come into this chaos of, oh wow, well now I just have to take care of myself. But then you start trying to just do busy work to keep yourself busy, but without making any progress.
Yep.
And it's a very difficult shift to go from taking care of a massive community to now just focusing on taking care of yourself and keeping yourself on check and keeping yourself accountable to be able to make everything happen. And also because you're losing that sense of community, I've noticed that there's a big jump on the depression side that hits everyone. It might not hit everyone as they're going through. That's why they want to keep themselves busy. But at some point, it's going to hit them that they lost something huge, and they have to prepare for that. If they don't prepare for that, it's going to be devastating.
Yeah, you're right, man. I mean, when you've, that day you were in uniform, when you've mattered to you, your peers, your command, your leadership, the fleet. I mean, and then the next day you don't, like, nobody at Coca-Cola or USAA or anywhere else gives a shit whether you show up to work or not. It's your paycheck. It's really a drain that man's got strong gravitational pull and people can circle. So Yogi, I think your point's well made, man. You got it. One of the first things you got to do, and they don't tell you this in TAPS class, right? Because nobody thinks about it. It's not necessarily tactical, it's cerebral. Hey, man, what am I going to do next? Who am I going to be next? How is what I'm going to do every day when I wake up going to matter? And cut the grass ain't it. Like, how am I going to find meaning and purpose and sense of mattering now that I don't anymore? I mean, coach your kids' little league team, go volunteer at an organization, go run a bakes. I mean, you got to find something to do, man. Go, you guys start a podcast and help the next brother or sister coming out behind you. You got to find something to do so you can say, hey, I'm Yogi. Hey, I'm Chris. I do this. Hey, I'm Eric. Jeremy and I help military veterans achieve meaningful, lucrative post-service careers. Bang! I know what I do every day when I get up. I know who I am and why I do it and how I do it. And you know what I mean? That's you're going to struggle with that. And that's not a bullet point in a textbook somewhere when you transition, man. It's just not in there. JB, what do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I think you hit it perfectly. Is how could you put it in a textbook? It probably should be there. But it's that impact of mattering, and I think fitting in. I will say one thing that Chris said was you should start your transition while you're still in, and I completely agree with that. And in fact, we were talking the other day, Doc, about when should you start your transition, when shouldn't you? And I think on your first enlistment, you just never know what the world's going to throw at you. You get out of your advanced training. Right then you should be thinking, okay, what's my next step? What happens if I get medically disqualified from my job this next year, which happens all the time. My brother-in-law right now is getting medical boarded from the Marines, and he's got 3.5 years in. So that's the end of his, Marine career. So, but I know, yeah, go ahead.
But JB, isn't that a weird tension? I mean, you guys are, I didn't do 20 plus, but guys, Jeremy and I were talking about it. It's like, we hear that all the time. Hey, start transitioning before you think it's time to start transitioning, or you're just going to bite you in the ass. Like, I'm telling you to start now, right? But yeah. You wake up every day, you got mission to do. You got folks to take care of. You got leaders to take care of. You got mission to accomplish, right? But, so how do you balance? I got to focus on mission, but I got to focus on me next, because the me next part, I mean, like me, you're going to spend more of your life outside of uniform probably than you spent in it statistically. So How are you going to take care of that?
Great question. I mean, and I think honestly, the best thing about the Air Force, at least for me, was anything that would progress my career would also help me transition. So they're big on education. So go get your degree. Great. Got your degree. Go get civilian certifications. Great. Go get those. They help you in your military career and help you be a better leader as well. So I always look for a path that would not only progress me as a civilian, but also progress me as a military leader. So I always planned to stay in, each different enlistment was always different. First it was like, hey, I'm going to do my 4 years and jump out. Then it was like, well, wait a minute. I've done 4. Maybe I'll, I've had a kid. Maybe I'll do 8. Okay, great. Let's do that. And then, it turns into September 11th. Couldn't get out if I wanted to get out. Then it, I'm kind of halfway there. Just let's stay in. Right. So it's a good thing that I constantly was progressing. But I'd love to hear it from Chris and Yogi too, because they're both in a kind of a medical situation as well.
Yeah, so I could talk a little bit about the medical situation because just 19 years, just shy of 19 years, and I get put on a LIMDU status out of Japan, and then my family and I are kicked out of Japan because the LIMDU status that I have, there's no treatment for what I have there in Japan. So now I got to relocate my family from Japan that we just literally moved there a year and a half before. So, and if you ever done any overseas stuff, it's complicated, but then COVID makes it even more complicated. And, you know, not just the expense wise, but also the complications that dealing with the Army move system when you're Navy, and then having to deal with all these other aspects. And then like, hey, there's no housing available in San Diego or in Washington State where my family's at. So my family goes on a year wait list. Well, you know, hey, a lot of people are like, well, you have your own house. Well, yeah, I have people living in those houses. So we didn't want to immediately evict them as soon as we get back. You know, we ended up giving them enough time to get out so my family can get into a house next month. And I've been here since August. It's taken that long to be able to get housing just for my family. And that already complicates it. Then on top of that, I'm finding out that I'm getting possibly med boarded. And, you know, I just told Doc at the beginning of the show, hey, I got approved for Fleet Reserve. So now at least I have something to shoot towards, you know, but that's in the next 6 months and counting, that I got to get everything ready to transition. Now, if I wasn't already in the transitioning mindset, because I've always had the end goal in mind, and I practice what I preach to my sailors. That's where these career development boards, the CDBs, is what we call it in the Navy. I'm sure the Air Force and Army and Marines, they have their own time when they sit down with their sailors and they're enlisted, junior enlisted, senior enlisted, and actually like plan out, okay, tell us what you want to do here. Okay, well, you need to start thinking outside of the Navy too. I would always tell them, plan to stay in, plan to get out. Always have a plan for both. So that way when it comes, because it could happen in a split second, you know, you're doing just fine. And then all of a sudden, you know, a jet blast deflector stanchion hits you in the head. And then years later, you're getting LIMDU'd and can't get processed out, you know. And, you know, Yogi can really hammer down on some more of that medical stuff as well.
So for me, I mean, you got to think about it. I was this highly effective chief that was running the flight deck all the time, right? And all about go, go, go. For 17 out of my 20 years, all I did was sea duty because shore duty was way too slow for me, right? To go from that onto oh, well, you got to have surgery right now because, you know, other stuff might happen. All right, cool. Let's do it. How long is the recovery process? 6 weeks. Cool. You know, you got something to look forward to. You got your goals. And that 6 weeks turns into you're not healing right. Oh, well, now your goal of staying in the military probably till 30, right? It changes to, well, not only are you not going to stay here, but you're going to be in this massive limbo for about 2 years to a year or a couple months, right? And every single month, and sometimes every single day, everything and the whole experience changes. So you're guessing about when you're going to go through the process. Am I actually going to get med boarded or not? Am I just going LIMDU or not? Am I getting stopped? Am I good? Am I healed? Are these doctors telling me the right stuff? And, you know, you get promised to get sent to, I got sent to Balboa, which was better resources than Iwakuni. However, they're still super burdened here, right? Nothing against the medical facilities or anything like that. However, they're completely understaffed and overmanned. So exactly. So with that being said, it makes it so difficult for you to find your place, and you're literally fighting the entire system. Because for me, right, I got here, I was LIMDU'd for 3 weeks, then I was good to go. I, you know, got ready so that I could get deployed. And then I was put on hold on what we call beach stat, right? Taking care of our junior sailors, and our sailors back at home port in Japan so that we can get ready to go to the next, catch up the ship to wherever it's at. So I got placed on Beachstead for about 5 months. And then when the ship comes back, I'm like, I'm ready to go. And then I ended up going to medical again. And they're like, you're not good. You're gonna you need to go get some medical help. And I was like, cool, what do I do? Where do I go? We cannot do it here. You're gonna go to San Diego. And I was like, look, man, I'm at 20 years old. I'm at 20 years in the Navy. What can we do so I can just stay here and figure it out? They're like, there's nothing I can do. So we're gonna send you to San Diego. I come to San Diego expecting, you know, rainbows and unicorns, everybody here to help me, and is chaotic. So, and then from there, now I'm on my second LIMDU, and I haven't even been seen by a doc. And I started being seen by the doc on my quote unquote third LIMDU because I fought for it. But most junior sailors or most people that are just tired, they're like, you know what? I'm gonna hang up my hat. It's easier for me to retire and just say, let's move on with my life. And that's what I preach against, because not only are you not taking care of yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally, just because you're seeing that, trying to get that immediate satisfaction instead of the long term, but you're also letting a lot of benefits on the table that you're entitled to. One of the lawyers for the process that I'm going through, the med board process, I asked them, I was like, hey, you know, this is easier for me to just get out. Why don't I just do that? I get the same stuff. And they said, Chief, you can do whatever you want. The decision is yours. However, this is what's entitled to you. It's as if I wrote you a blank check and you're entitled to $1 million, but instead you only put 50 cents in there. The rest of that is up to you. How you take it or leave it is up to you. This is when you signed that contract. Before you joined the military, you said that you were going to be doing this with the government being able to take care of you after the fact to make sure that you were healthy. If you don't want to take that from that is up to you. If you don't want to get healthy, that is also up to you. But what happens after this, you're going to be the only one that's going to deal with the consequences. And that shook me to my core. Because I was ready to just put in my papers and get out.
And think about this. So your career grinds to a halt. I mean, you're not going back to the fleet, right? Because now everybody's like, whoa, LIMDU, I can't put this guy on my billet. Like, I'm not dealing with this cat. Hey, I'm still a chief. No, not anymore, brother. Go to the beach, right?
Yep.
So now your career's ground to a halt. You're not doing 30. Now you're in LIMDU. And I don't know about you guys, and it doesn't sound like it's changed much. I was 30 years ago. But I'll tell you what, the minute I got LIMDU pinned on my chest, dude, that was it. Senior chief don't want to talk to me no more. Master chief too busy. Like the XO, like, hey man, I got a shift to run. Like, thanks, cat. We'll see. And now you're in the VA system. The VA don't want you. You're Department of Labor. Department of Labor don't want you. You're a veteran. Go see the VA. Well, the fleet doesn't want you because you're on your way out. You're not a sailor. Good luck.
Exactly.
Now imagine this, guys. Imagine you ain't the E6. You ain't the E9. You aren't the O5. You don't have resources. You're the first hitch guy or gal, or you're the E3. I mean, It's just a soup sandwich from top to bottom. And it doesn't sound like it's improved much.
And it's funny, I just had the same speech with a group of LIMDU sailors that I'm here in Coronado that I'm talking to. And I told them the exact same speech that you just did, because that automatically happens. And yeah, it's no fault of their own and no fault of the command. Everybody has a different mission, different vision, but you're like this hot potato that just gets dropped. And who's going to pick it up? You got to pick yourself up, and that's it.
Amen, brother. Get some hot mitts on, man. Get yourself picked up.
Yeah.
Bootstraps.
Yeah.
I love that analogy.
You bring up some great points. You know, I mean, we talk about, and for anybody that's listening that's not Navy or Marine, LIMDU is limited duty, right? To where you can't do your job. For the Air Force, a lot of times we put they go straight to a med board. So Limit assignment status would be another word that they would use for the Army and the Air Force. So it would be
Profiled.
Right, you're profiled, right? You're put on that certain profile, and from that point, you're nuclear. Nobody else wants to touch you. All they can think about from a leadership perspective is removing you from the unit manning document so that they can bring in a new healthy body so that their unit's back to 100% or 90%, what most units are operating at. So,
I don't 100% blame the unit commanders and
no.
The leadership for that either, because what is their main objective? Their main objective is the mission, right? The mission at hand. They're going to have to reorganize things, get through the point. And, I've been in the process where I've had a LIMDU sailor. So, I know the trials and tribulations that the leadership have with this. And that's where we take ownership and we start building a tribe. And that's kind of what we've been doing inside of our own local organizations, with not only just the podcast that we're creating, but actually bringing that to like the temporary LIMDU. What is it? Was it TM? What is it? What's your unit called, Yogi?
So I'm at CNAP, but it's the LIMDU group. I'm talking to LIMDU groups individually throughout the base.
Yeah. So, and I'm at an actual LIMDU unit essentially within another operational unit. So then that just compounds a lot of other things and a lot of complications. So the first day I came in there, I was like, no, I'm not going to be a part of any of this negativity. I'm not going to partake in any of it. So I just started finding resources. We started talking to nonprofit organizations, and I'm bringing them to the command, bringing little bucketfuls of information, and encouraging people to, hey, go pursue these options that are out there. And that's kind of what led to the creation of this podcast. I was like, well, man, it's brought me a lot of joy doing that.
Yep.
How can I do this and get this kind of joy forever? And that's kind of what created this. And Yogi's another one of those just super motivators that I was like, Yogi, come join me.
And let me tell you, Chris, the first time somebody walks up to you, bro, I mean, it happens to me all the time. I'll be somewhere speaking or I'll be somewhere doing business development, and somebody will walk up and say, hey, Doc, man, I just heard your podcast, dude, episode whatever. And they start telling me about the episode and the thing that they took away and how it changed their life or changed their thinking or their whatever. Dude, talk about a humbling experience. And, people all the time say, hey, man, you're so excitable. You're all out there selling his chamois, dude. You're all jacked up on caffeine or, Celsius drinks or whatever. And it's like, no, man, I'm jacked up because I was in a dark place. I got out of the dark place. I help other people stay away from those dark places, man. I know what I wake up every day for. It just motivates you, man. It pumps you up, right? Because some other brother or sister doesn't have to go fall down that hole now,
Yeah, no doubt. And as we go forward, I mean, we've got a lot of transitioning military that are listening to this show. So from your guys' perspective, and they hear our perspective all the time, but from your guys' perspective, and we'll start with Yogi, like what's the first, second, or third thing that they need to start thinking about when something like a med board happens? We'll kind of focus it on the med board. That way it's, kind of targeted. And then we've got, the episode name and all that can kind of centralize around return to roots / med board. So Yogi, what's one of the things that, good advice, nuggets that you would give to somebody? Hey, first hitch, second hitch, third hitch, it doesn't matter. You just got popped for a med board and your life is about to change.
So first thing I would say is understand that you and your self-identity is getting ripped away. No fault of anybody, no fault of your own, right? But that's going to affect you mentally, physically, and emotionally. And you need to go seek help, guidance, mentorship. For someone as I like to call myself successful and always being a positive guy, always looking at the brightest side of things. I mean, every enlistment that I did, I went to TAPS class just to be ready prepared to get out, right? I've according to Navy standards, I'm considered to be $1 million sailor, right? And even then, as soon as this started happening, the first time that they mentioned LIMDU to me, I was completely offended. It felt like somebody had just cussed me out. And like everything that I had worked my entire career for, they said, you know what? You're worthless. Get out. That's how it felt to me. That was not the intention, but that's how it felt to me. And going through the process and going through all the hardships, I'm glad that I understand that I'm not the only one that goes through a dark place when this happens. And it gets super dark, super fast. Sometimes you don't even know it. I would say the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're mentally in a good place. And if you cannot get that there by yourself, seek help. Number 2, be productive and be proactive. Do everything that you have done to be successful in and out of the military in your entire life, and try to focus that just on you. Don't focus on staying busy. Focus on your life affairs, right? And by focusing on your life affairs and focusing on your personal health care and everything, who knows, you might be able to stay in, right? You might heal faster. You might seek out the results that you want and push through, right? And those people that beat the med board, man, we consider them to be almost gods, invincible, right? And if you're not able to quote unquote beat the med board, you know what? That's okay too. But reach out for the resources, reach out for the help. You're not alone. You're in any part of this process. The Navy is really good. The military and the Department of Defense, they have been really good at providing resources, but you have to do your part. You have to search for the resources. You have to do the work to do what you need to do, and don't take the easy route and say, you know what, I'm just gonna fulfill my contract and get out. I'm just gonna put in my retirement papers and get out. Actually, get as best help while you're in the military. Everyone, I'm still in, right? But everyone that's already out, they tell me that they regret not fighting and not doing and not fixing themselves, because the minute you get out, you're legitimately out. You're out the door. It's a completely different treatment. You thought that it was bad while you were in. It's even more difficult while you get out.
Oh,
So
man.
that's what I got so far, bro.
Great advice. I'm going to sum it up in a couple words, and just to make it a little easier for the listeners, but expect the effect, right? The effect that it will have on your mind, probably physiologically as well. Having gone through it myself, it's the unknown. It is quite the definition of anxiety, right?
Yes.
It is the unknown. You don't know what that med board's going to do, and you don't know their timeline, right?
Yes.
They'll tell you 6 weeks, it'll be tomorrow. They'll tell you, it'll be tomorrow, it'll be 6 weeks. And you're like, well, how do I plan my life? And a military member, exactly. Yeah. They're always ready to plan, right? We always are trying to make a plan, execute the plan, and then, monitor and control it. Right. So I love that. Expect the effect. Get counseling, right? Take care of that mental state. Talk to somebody about it. Get professional help, because and it ties right into what you were saying. Get the help, but be productive. You just served a career in the military where you were an expert at learning, an expert technician. Now you got to become an expert at the medical process.
Yes.
Go do it. Do the research. Find out what your benefits are. Go to the VA. Figure out where your future lies. And then I heard fight, right? Fight to stay in. It doesn't get better when you're out. You don't magically get better health care. It just doesn't happen. If you can't get an appointment as an active duty member, you're not going to get one as a VA member, right? As soon as you got the blue ID card, it doesn't get better. It gets worse for medical appointments. Just saying, seen it on the other side. Love it, man.
Great.
Good job, Yogi.
Great.
All right, Chris, your turn.
Yogi brought up a lot of good points and you recapitalized on some of them. First off, to everybody that's listening, like, honestly, from the deepest parts of my heart, man, thank you for your service. Like, seriously, like, you sacrifice more than anybody else has around you. Just remember, we make up less than 1% of the population of the United States. And you successfully served not just for me, but for my kids, my wife, my entire family. So thank you. Your sacrifice is appreciated. There's people out there that want to help you out. Get to know your resources. That's why we're doing this. We found a whole entire sea of goodwill, as you call it, that's out there that wants to help you out and get you those resources. So first off, thank you for your service and find your resources. Second, find that counselor, like Yogi and Jeremy was just saying. Find a counselor. Adjustment disorder is a real thing. Even if you have pre-history things, you're still going to face adjustment disorder. It's normal, especially through the med board process. Do not think that you are strong enough. Find someone to talk to. I don't care if you go talk to a buddy. Find somebody. You don't have to go get somebody written down, but there's professionals out there that are designed to help you kind of realize that you are in that phase of adjustment disorder. So I highly recommend anybody that's going through the med board process to get somebody to talk to, because it is a very stressful environment. Very stressful, especially when you're a high performer. You're slated to take over top community billets, and I understand what that's like.
Great.
And then the other thing is, be your advocate. Be your advocate. You no one cares about you more than you. And the problem is a lot of us are just kind of stuck in that whole entire, oh, I'll take care of me after I take care of the next person. But you got to be your own advocate.
Preach,
gotta
brother,
stand up.
preach.
You got to stand up for yourself. You got to say, look, I'm fucked up. I'm fucked
We
up.
get it. We get salty in here sometimes, brother. It's okay.
Yeah.
I need help. I have this thing going on with me. Tell your doctor the truth. Don't downplay your stuff. Be your own advocate, because you don't know what you don't know unless you actually go in there and you say, hey doc, this has been happening. Okay, well, it leads to this, and then it leads to this. And then eventually they find something that's actually causing it, because you're in there, you're on med board for a reason. So you might as well use the resources that you have and try to get yourself better. So thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Find a counselor and be your own advocate.
Yeah, you wrapped it up, man, yourself. So well done. I think all great points. And look, what you're doing right now is you're adding value to anybody that's listening that's about to go through the process. And if you're not about to go through the process, expect that you will at some point. Nobody stays in the military forever. They just don't. You have to transition. There's a top line, 30, maybe 33 if you're lucky, or if you're a star general, there's some exceptions, but for the most part, everybody will transition. And all of that advice still goes for even if you're not medical. So it all works out. Doc, what else?
I tell you what, man, I think, Yogi set him up with a slow pitch over the plate, man. And Chris just put that thing over the back wall, man. I mean, that's good stuff, dude. And I think, Jeremy, your point, I think it's worth repeating, gang, is look, man, I don't want people to listen to this and walk away with hey, those cats were pretty disparaging about the whole process. All we're saying is transitioning from being the professional who mattered one day to somebody who doesn't matter much the next day, at least professionally, is a tough row to hoe without all the additional med stuff added on the top. So what Yogi and Chris are telling us, gang, they're not being disparaging. It's not the command's fault. It's not the Navy's fault. It's not the fleet's fault. It's not the Corps' fault. It's nobody's fault. It just is the way it is. It's a big system and you're a small part in it. Right. So, you know, you got to take care of yourself. And JB, you know, like you said, man, I mean, you just don't know when it's going to end. So, you know, we're not disparaging. This stuff applies whether you're med board or LIMDU or whatever else you want to call it, profiled. It applies whether you are that or not. And everybody's going to do this at some point. Just some of us know when that is. Hey, I dropped my papers. I've been thinking about this for 2 years. Some of us, hey, man, they told me last week, get the heck out of the fleet. I mean, I was telling Chris before we started recording, that's what happened. It took a year for them to figure out what they were doing. Senior chief comes down and said, right, go pack your shit, boy, hit the pier. What? You know what I mean? Hey, you're transferring to the limited duty battalion. Like, they're expecting you, 1,500, get gone. Okay, bye, everybody. It's crazy. So this stuff applies, man.
Yeah. And there's nothing stranger, at least feeling wise, at least from my perspective, is the last time you have your uniform on and it's technically not authorized. Like you are escorted off the base, or you've got your blue ID card and you are no longer active, but you've still got your uniform. You still got to go home and take it off. The drive home when you're unauthorized to wear that uniform is a very freaky thing. At least I remember it very distinctly, thinking, oh man, I am breaking the rules right now.
Dude, I was having a panic attack. I was turning right onto 32nd Street off of 32nd Street base. And I remember it was bright as day. I had top down on the Jeep. I'm sitting in San Diego, right where Chris is and Yogi are right now. And I distinctly remembered, hey man, why am I in full dress uniform? I'm not a sailor. I'm out of uniform. I should be in civilian clothes or whatever. And you're right, man, that drive home, I don't remember much after that. I was just scared shitless. Like, holy, what do I do when I wake up tomorrow, man? Like, what?
Yeah, I guess you don't PT.
Well, actually, I did go PT because I didn't know what else the hell to do. I went to the beach and PT'd, and then I went and surfed, and I was like, man, I got to clear my head, and didn't clear my head much. So anyway, yeah.
I would actually like to add something else. I'm actually, in retrospect, not wanting to ever get hurt, right? But I am super happy, and I actually feel blessed that I'm going through this med board, because I am confronting everything while I'm still in the service, right? Versus my original plan, which was just to get out in Japan and move on with my life. There would have been so many resources, so many things, so many people that I would have not had an opportunity or a chance to move forward and or help. And this has brought so much awareness on what everybody goes through. I remember one of my junior sailors, when she was here in San Diego, called me and said, Chief, these people suck. They're not helping me. And I try to point her out to the best resources that I had at the time. And I remember in the back of my head saying, is it really that bad, or are you just not getting the help that you need, right? So now, a couple years later, I'm on the other shoe and I'm like, wow, you know, I don't want to be that junior sailor saying, hey, somebody, I need help. So you know what can I do? So it is there. Once you get over that hump of feeling hopeless and all that stuff, there is help on the other side, and you just got to ask and reach for it. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, no, it's a great perspective. One, a very positive perspective. The medical or limited duty or whatever your service calls it, at a minimum, the benefit is it forces you to face the transition beast head on, right? Because you can, if you're a normal guy, like Doc was saying, hey, I planned for this, I'm going to do a year, I'm ending getting to the end of my enlistment, and you see it all the time, I'm sure, there, chiefs. You see these first term enlistees, and they get within 3 months of really walking out the door and have no clue what they're going to do, because they didn't have to face the transition monster, because you can ignore it. In the medical side of things. When you're limited duty or you're in a med board, you are forced to face it. So there is a benefit. So I guess for all the doom and gloom that we just talked about, Yogi, well said. Way to bring a positive spin on it is you will face and you will learn about it. I mean, that's pretty good.
And much like Chris's poignant advocate for yourself, right? We're not taught to do that in the military. We're not taught to do that as our exit tap. Hey, go learn how to sell yourself. They don't teach us how to do that stuff. The other thing too is Yogi hit the nail on the head, man. When you've been figuring out and getting shit done, because that's just how you were raised, and then like you have to go ask somebody for help, you got to get over that, man. If you need some help, you got to ask somebody. You got to figure out how to ask, and you got to swallow that pride. You don't have to figure out with a field manual and a dark and a red flashlight anymore at midnight, man. Go ask for help, man. Anyway, but that's tough to do when you've not been raised that way. Go figure it out, right? Get the mission done, hell or high water. It's a weird mind shift.
And you don't advocate for yourself. You advocate for your unit, the people below you, your replacement, never yourself. Like it's just not natural. So good point. Gents, as we begin to wrap this up, what's the last bit of advice you might give to a transitioning military member, a veteran, if you will, that will be out in about 6 months? So kind of couch it with that. Now we'll take the medical barrier off. I know the advice may not change, but just think of one last golden nugget that you would slide in, or resource, like your guys' podcast, Return to Roots, or something else. Yogi, you're up.
Get a mentor.
Ooh,
Get a mentor. I cannot stress that enough. Get someone that's already gone through the process, someone that's going to be there for you. We were extremely blessed to run into Maurice. And at first it was a huge, so it's funny. I talked to Chris and we were in my house just going back and forth. And then Chris just went out one day and came back. He's like, yeah, I ran into this guy. He wants to have lunch with us. And I was like, all right, I'll go. And I went, and he has changed my life. So get a mentor and look for the opportunities. Reboot, right, is the first program that we've known about. And that was the start, right? That led us down this rabbit hole. And every person that I speak with now, that we speak with and we interview them, I'm so excited because this is another program that I didn't know anything about. The STEP program. I wish I would have known about the STEP program 19 years ago. I would have been able to help so many of my junior sailors get away from the vicious cycle of indebtedness and not having money by creating good habits that we're trying to instill. So wrapping it up, get a mentor, get financially stable, and love your family, because they're going to be the only ones that are going to follow you past that door.
Man, well said.
And just to reiterate, Jeremy, STEP was founded by my good buddy, submarine service, Tony Tervanian, when we were on the McKee together. So yeah, Tony's grown up to be one hell of a giant in the take care of our junior enlisted space. They're up in Washington now. They're expanding. They're planning on nationwide. So, hey, Tony, if you're listening, brother, cheers to you and the STEP team. Chief just mentioned you, bro. Chris, go ahead, dude.
And for I didn't hear. Did you say the whole entire name? It's Support the Enlisted Project, and that is like, you need to go check it out if this is like the first time you're hearing it. That was a awesome resource, and Tony came on and recorded with us, so you guys can hear one of his episodes on our show as well. Yogi hit a lot of the good ones, man. Thanks, Yogi, for stealing all the good thunder. Your attitude.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Your attitude matters, right? Now, yeah, you're transitioning out, but dude, you get to actually like re-identify yourself as whatever you want. As my good friend always says, the world is your oyster. I think that's Yogi's quote that he's always saying. So the world is truly your oyster. You can literally do anything you want as long as you change your attitude towards projecting that way. So what does that mean? Write it down, put it in front of you, stare at it every single day. So every time you take a step, you're walking towards it, not away from it. And if you take a step back, okay, take another step forward. That's just how life is. Things happen, but your attitude is what you truly control in the time that you transition. Even if you just change your life 1% at a time, which is about 14 minutes of your day, if you just spent 14 minutes improving whatever you want to do or getting yourself to where you want to be, you will be absolutely unstoppable eventually. Okay. So that is my big advice to you.
Great advice. Great
You
advice.
just got a nickname too, Chris. Transition philosopher, brother.
Yeah, I love it. I think Doc and I got to hear Jesse Iwuji, Navy turned NASCAR driver, played football for Navy as well. And that was one of his big things, you know, immigrant, started from nothing. And his philosophy was write it down. He had a whiteboard, he'd write what he wanted down and he'd look at it every day. And so every atom of his body gravitated towards that goal. And he said that was his secret to success. So well done. Well said, Chris. I love it. I agree with it 100%. Write something down. It becomes real. You put it out in the universe. And from there, you start to push towards it every morning. So, wow. Good stuff. Doc, I'll let you wrap it up.
Hey, Yogi, Chris, you guys ever need anything, shipmates, just holler at me, man. This is, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. So enlightening. I appreciate your time. And gang out there in MTA Podcast Nation, man, check these cats out. Return to Roots podcast. They got the YouTube channel to back it up. So, good stuff. Refer your buddies to them. Subscribe, like, smash the bell, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff that we don't tell you to do. Do it for them, will you?
Thank you for
JB,
tuning in and spending a bit of time with us at the Military Transition Academy powered by Vets to PM. If we piqued your interest, but you want more details, please head over to the website vets2pm.com and see if we can help prepare you for a better tomorrow or a future meaningful and lucrative career.